Who are we studying? Gideon, yes. And Gideon is a judge. Which judge? Fifth judge of Israel, yes. And a mighty man of valor. And he is showing his valor now, is he not? Okay, he has prepared for battle. He's prepared his troops for battle. They've aligned themselves up for battle. And they have actually finally engaged in battle. Ooh, it took us a long time to get there, hasn't it? And with how many troops did he fight the Midians? Yes, 300. And what did he have to fight with? Trumpets, pitchers, and torches, lanterns, and that was it initially, was it not? And how in the world did he put to flight the Midians with just that kind of weaponry? How do you do that? Okay, he surrounds the enemy. Then all of a sudden they blow the trumpets all at once. They drop the pitchers and break them. They may have set fires with the torches. They may have just waved the torches like crazy. And what time was it when all this transpired? Yeah, about at least a little after 10, wasn't it? It says the second watch of the night, and they had to get ready, they had to get in place, and all of those things. But somewhere around or after 10 o'clock, maybe around 11, whatever it was. But where was the enemy when all this transpired? Asleep. And so when it happened, what happened to the Midianites? Yeah, they were immediately thrown into chaos, were they not? And as Mike said, they began to fight one another, didn't they? Okay, and they were even killing one another. Now, folks, that's even worse, isn't it? Now we're really, getting back, because, torches and stuff like that, that's not going to kill you. But boy, sword stabbed into your stomach, something chops your arm off, something chops your leg off, that's getting kind of serious. And so where are the Midians trying to get to? Yes, they're trying to get to the rivers, to the fords, to the water as quickly as they possibly can. They've been put in flight, haven't they? Let me ask you this. After the initial battle with the 300, did others engage in the battle? Yes. Look in your Bibles. You can just look in your notes there. Judges 6:35. He had sent for 4 tribes, had he not? And he sent messengers throughout all Manasseh, who also was gathered after him. And he sent messengers unto Asher, and unto Zebulun, and unto Naphtali, and they came up to meet him. So there had been 4 tribes called up to fight. Okay? And after that initial engagement of 300, then the rest of those 4 tribes began to engage in the battle as well. So the pressure was being put on the Midianites pretty hard, wasn't it? Okay, they were put to flight by the 300. Now they're being pursued by 4 tribes, and things just aren't looking good for who? For the Midianites. But what do armies like to try to do? I mean, if you're fleeing like that, if we can just get across the river, right, that can give us time to do what? To regroup, to reform our troops, to get a strategy, to get a battle plan. And was Midian greater than Israel in number? Yes. And so if we could just get across there and reformate our armies, boy, we could go against them again, right? Well, that leads to our subject today. It's entitled The Pursuit by Ephraim. The Pursuit by Ephraim. They weren't one of the 4 initial called, were they? No. But all of a sudden, now we got Ephraim, another tribe of Israel, involved in this. And we read about it in Judges chapter 7, 24 through 25. Notice what happens. And Gideon sent messengers throughout all Mount Ephraim, saying, "Come down against the Midianites." Wow. The clan, the Midianites. I mean, the Ephraimites. Who in the world are the Ephraimites? Who is Ephraim? Okay, he's the second child of Joseph, right? Who was the first? Manasseh. Manasseh was the oldest. Ephraim was the brother to Manasseh, second oldest. They were children of a woman by the name of Asenath. Okay, she was the daughter of the priest of what? The priest of On. The daughter of the priest of On. And his name was Potipharah. We learn about that in Genesis chapter 41, verse 15. Both of these brothers were born where? In Egypt. True or false? Both of these brothers received a tribe in Israel. True. All right, let's think about it. How many brothers were there? There were 12 brothers, right? And so if Joseph's two sons both get a lot in Israel, there should have been 13 plots. Is that right? Ah, there we go. Yes. Levi became the priestly tribe, and so Levi was not given a parcel of land. They were given 48 cities in the nation of Israel, but they were not given an inheritance within the land itself. So Ephraim and Manasseh took one of those group sons took what would have been Levi's, or if you want to put it that way. Okay, so very, very interesting how that transpired. Remember, Gideon is from the tribe of who? Who's he from the tribe of? He's from the tribe of Manasseh. Okay, now think about that. Gideon's going to battle. He's calling tribes to help him. He calls 4 tribes to be there with him, and he leaves a certain tribe out and doesn't call them. Who does he not call? He doesn't call his brother. He doesn't call his brother. Okay? Until when? Until the initial battle has already been started. Until Midian has already started to flee. And now he does what? Now he calls Ephraim to the battle. Wow. Folks, Ephraim was the largest tribe of Israel. Okay? When the kingdom split, you had 2 groups, didn't you? What were the 2 groups? You had the northern kingdom and you had the southern kingdom. Okay, that's the way we talk about them sometimes. Northern kingdom, southern kingdom. We call the northern kingdom by what name? Israel. And we call the southern kingdom by the name Judah. Even though Benjamin and Levi were part of the southern kingdom. Okay, we call it Judah because Judah was what? He was the big boy. Okay? And so the southern kingdom just was styled as Judah. Well, guess what? The northern kingdom, sometimes in the Old Testament, is referred to by the largest tribe's name, and guess what that is? Ephraim. And I gave you an example there in Hosea 4, verse 17. Ephraim is joined to idols. Let him alone. If you look in the context, he's not talking about one tribe, folks. He's talking about what? The entirety of the northern kingdom. They've turned to idols. Let them alone. But because they were the biggest of the tribes, he refers to all of Israel as what? As Ephraim. Now think about that. I'm the largest tribe. I'm the most powerful tribe. We've got the biggest army. You're my brother, and you don't what? You didn't call me to battle initially. Right? Now just keep that in your mind. Okay? Interesting. Let me ask you this question. Was Ephraim under the oppression of the Midianites? I got one, yeah. I got some going, oh no. Okay? Had Midian taken over all of Israel or just the 4 tribes that we just mentioned? Folks, they had taken over the entirety of Israel, right? But when it came time to fight, Gideon only calls for 4 tribes until now, and now he finally calls who? He calls his brethren. The call. Come down against the Midianites. As the largest tribe, they would have an abundance of fighting men who could assist in the battle. Now notice point 2. All Israel was under the oppression of the Midianites. So folks, if you're called to the battle, would it be in your best interest to go? Oh yes, it would be in your best interest to go. Now I've given you a map there, and I want you to see where Ephraim is. You see it? You have Asher, Naphtali, Manasseh, and who? I mean the ones that were initially called. Asher, Naphtali, Manasseh, and Zebulun. He had those 4 tribes, right? Well, now he finally calls who? Ephraim. Ephraim's almost way down there in the dead center. Might there have been a strategic reason why he didn't call them? Where were the Midianites going to come from? They were going to come from the north from the north down into the land of Israel. So those tribes would have been the first to what? Have to fight anyway, wouldn't they? So there may have been some wisdom in why Gideon did what he did and not call who? Not call Ephraim. We won't call Ephraim unless what? We need Ephraim. Well, guess what? We need Ephraim now, so he calls them. That leads to point number 2, Judges 7:24b. Here's the rules of engagement. And take before them, listen to him, the waters of Beth-bara and what? Jordan. What did we say at the introduction? Where were the Midianites trying to go? Across the Jordan, across the fords, across the rivers, across the streams. Folks, they're trying to do everything they can do to get away from the enemy and buy some time so they don't get destroyed. Take before them. Did you hear what he said? Take before them what? The waters of Beth-bara and Jordan. You get there what? Before they do. And you make certain you have these rivers secured, and you make certain that they don't get across these rivers. Question, was Ephraim in a very strategic position in this battle now? Oh yeah. Folks, what they were called upon to do was vitally needed, was it not? Extremely so. Notice that Beth-bara was a ford that helped to feed the Jordan River. And the Jordan was a river that ran from what? The Sea of Galilee all the way to what? The Dead Sea. Okay? Now, was the Jordan a powerful river? No. Wasn't a powerful river. Okay? It meanders 200 miles to travel 65 miles. Okay? There's 65 miles as the crow flies from the Sea of Galilee down to the Dead Sea. But it takes you 200 miles traveling down the Jordan River to get there. Because the Jordan River does what? It does like this. Well, the more a river winds, the less strength the river has. Okay? So this is not a huge river. It's not a massive river. About how deep is it? Anybody know? I've written some articles on this in times past. Somewhere between 4, 6, maybe 8 feet deep. Okay, folks? Most places the Jordan River is not over your head. Okay? It's a pretty shallow river. But think about this. Is it difficult for an army to cross a river? Oh yes. And if I can get across a river and finally get to the other side and my enemy is pursuing me, guess what they'll most of the time do? They'll stop at the river. Oh, they're gone. We're not going to spend all this time, all this effort crossing this river to go chasing after them. Okay? So they think that the army would just stop. All right? So that's the mindset of the Midianites. Well now, and Gideon knows that, doesn't he? So what does he say? You get to Beth-bara, you get to the Jordan, and you cut it off from the Midianites. Wow. Notice point number 3, the response of Ephraim. Then all the men of Ephraim gathered themselves together and took the water unto Bethbara and Jordan. Wow. We don't read of any hesitation whatsoever of this tribe to fight against the enemy, do we? The minute they're called, the minute they're told what they need to do, is the very minute they spring into action. Why? Yes. Folks, this is the chance to get out from under oppression, is it not? This is the chance we have to win a victory. This is a chance we have to be free again. And so Ephraim knows that, and they're not going to what? They're not going to spoil it, so they immediately go into battle and they do what they're supposed to do. Any hope of escape by the Midians or the Midianites was now what? Cut off. There's no way for them to win. Notice point number 4, the ruin of 2 princes. First they were captured, and they took 2 princes of the Midianites, Oreb and who? Zeb. Boy, don't you just love those Old Testament names? You know? I could just see, if my mama had named me Oreb, I would be in a fit right now. You know that? Goodness great. And if she named me Zeb, it'd been even worse. Okay, I'd name my brother Zeb. Man. Folks, it happened that as they secured these waters, guess who they happened upon? 2 princes. Okay? 2 princes of the Midianites. Is that a pretty high position? Folks, that's a pretty high position in the nation. Okay? A prince. Their names, Oreb means the raven, and Zeb means the wolf. Wow. Now I might take one of those names. Okay? Mightn't you? Okay, especially the second one. Folks, their capture would have been a major victory for the children of Israel, would it not? When you capture the leader of a nation, when you capture one of the top guys, man, that makes headlines, doesn't it? It's scattered all over 24/7 news channels. Oreb and Zeb have been captured. Not only so, it appears as if these 2 men were probably 2 of the top fighting men in the command of the Midianites. So here you've got the capture of these 2 princes. What's that going to do for Israel? Oh man, we got the big guys. We got the big dogs. We got the guys who are primarily heading this show. What's that going to do to the Midianites? Oh, badly, isn't it? Badly, folks. You get your top commanders captured, and then you also add to that the waters have been cut off. This ain't good, is it? Total demoralization of the enemy has transpired. Now note this next point, the casualties. Not only are they captured, and they slew Oreb upon the rock of Oreb. And Zeb they slew at the winepress of Zeb. I thought they were in the land of Israel. Didn't you? And yet they slew them on what? Slew him on a rock named after him. Slew him on a winepress named after him. Folks, those 2 names came about when? Yes, after the slaying. This is for what? This is for the memorialization of Israel, isn't it? This is where we won the battle against Zeb. This is where we won the battle against who? Against Oreb. This is where they were put to death. You could walk by there every time and go, ooh, look at there. That's where the Midianites got hammered right there. Okay? I want you to look at the note. Sometimes we forget that Israel was not just a spiritual nation at this time. Folks, the church is a spiritual kingdom, isn't it? We're not a physical kingdom in this world. Yes, we're in the world, but we're not what? We're not part of the world. We're not of the world. And the weapons that you and I have to fight with are not what? They're not physical. Paul says, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the casting down of strongholds. You and I are fighting a spiritual war, folks. Israel was both a spiritual kingdom and a what? Physical kingdom. Okay? You know, it's funny to me how we get these, we don't study enough, and we think that physical kingdoms are supposed to act just like the church. Do you know that? Even today, we think physical kingdoms are supposed to act just like the church, and they're not. They're not designed for the same purpose, folks. Okay? And so when it comes to conflicts between physical nations, guess what those conflicts are going to be? They're going to be physical in nature, and there's just no way around that. The nation had to fight in order to maintain their freedom and their status in the world at that time. Okay? So it's, you know, we have to remember that Israel was a physical kingdom as well. Notice point C in verse 25. And pursued what? Pursued Midian. Folks, in addition to taking the princes, guess what they did? They didn't just cut off the waters. They didn't just kill the princes. They even did what? Folks, they engaged in the fight. They pursued after the Midianites. They really went hog wild, didn't they? The army was in disarray. The surprise had caught them off guard. Now the escape route was cut off. It was easy to overtake the enemy while they were in flight instead of being organized. Yes, sir. Everything. These guys are hurting. You're absolutely right. They are hurting. He's got the picture in his head over here. Okay, and that's what we need to see. Sometimes we just read what? We just read word. Okay, they put them to flight. They pursued them. They put them to death. Folks, get into the battle. Act like you were there and broadcasting this stuff. Okay. Notice the last point of Judges 7:25c. This is so sweet. You know what? And brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon on the other side of Jordan. Woo! This is good TV right here. This is good movie stuff right here, isn't it? I always wonder how you transport them things. Okay? You just tie the hair onto your horse? Do you bag them up? One of those sackcloth bags? How do you tote this thing? I know what they did with John the Baptist's head, don't you? Put it in a what? Yeah, they put it on a platter, served it up. Okay? Can you imagine? Folks, I don't know about you, that's pretty nasty. And here they are, they're just proud, aren't they? Come back across the river, they find Gideon. Look here, what we got. Them faces are just, man, that's some rough stuff. Unbelievable. Folks, those heads were trophies, were they not? That's the reason they took them. Trophies. Oftentimes, heads and bodies would be hung up before the enemy. What would that do to the enemy? Folks, it demoralizes, it strikes terror into the hearts of them, do they not? Just think if the enemy comes along and they see those dead bodies of Oreb and Zeb. They know the bodies. You can tell by the clothing that they wear, by the armor and things that they're wearing, by the swords that they're carrying. That's who? That's Oreb and Zeb. But no what? No head. That's not good. Not good. Bringing them to Gideon did two things, folks. Number one, it proved that these men had been killed in battle, didn't it? If you don't have your head, you're pretty much dead. I'd say that, wouldn't you? They're no more a threat to whom? To Israel. It also manifested the effectiveness of calling Ephraim to the battle, didn't it? Wow. We got the who? We got the princes. Man, think about that, guys. We cut off the waters just like you asked us to. We pursued after the Midianites and we kept them in disarray in the battle. And we also what? Captured and killed two of the most powerful princes of the nation of Midian. Man, that puts you on a pretty high pedestal, doesn't it? Unbelievable. The conclusion. The battle was going well for Gideon, wasn't it? Man. The surprise attack went perfectly. Manasseh, Asher, Zebulun, Naphtali, guess what? They all did their job. And now Ephraim comes along, and guess what? He does his job. Two princes are dead. The battle is what? The battle is ours. Not much more to do. Now look at point B. Even though Ephraim responded positively to Gideon's calls to arm, they were upset with their leader. Now that they were in his presence, they would confront him with their problem. Man, that's next week. Next week. See, this is like a soap opera. You got to keep it going, right? You got to keep it going, and we know why they're upset, don't we? You ought to know by what we've already said. Okay, but the point is, how is Gideon going to handle that as a what? As a leader. That's the interesting point. All righty, thank you.